Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Go back to affirmations for a second, right? So a lot of people try to shift their beliefs by changing what they're telling themselves. And this is a zero-sum game. I have seen time and time again people failing. And I think that's also why a lot of these books that are out there fall a little short, because what happens is people kind of start on that track. They start telling themselves something. And yet there's deeply held unconscious beliefs that are basically maintaining a holding pattern in your physical environment, right? And so the best way to go about this is please, 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 please do not repeat affirmations to yourself unless you have done a lot of mind training, which I applaud, and which the tiniest percentile of the human population will ever undergo because of how difficult it is. That said, you can retrain in different ways, in ways that are they sneak by the unconscious. So that's why, for instance, a moment ago, in the last time I was speaking, when I was talking about the reticular activating system, right? So this is a kind of a network in the brain. As far as I can tell, we're still totally trying to figure it out. But the cool thing about it is that it's seeking for answers to your predominant questions or your predominant thought patterns. It's filtering everything in your environment to find matches to those predominant beliefs, right? And so if you start, again, on the level of the conscious mind being like, I'm this or I'm that, right? It's like, it's almost like it starts listening and they're like, oh, well, you're not, right? So there's a mismatch. But what it does welcome and what it does get excited about is a question.
Introducing a powerful new update from the Foojan app. Now with flexible subscription plans to fit your journey monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Our new AI-driven onboarding customizes your path to feeling better, faster, and enjoy a refreshed experience with stunning 3D interactive videos. Update now. Empower your inner voice with Foojan. Download today.
Welcome to The Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Foojan Zeine. I'm a psychotherapist, author, and the founder of the International Awareness Integration Institute. Today, I will be talking with Courtney McDermott. She's an award-winning author, TEDx speaker, and a human potential enthusiast. Her work in self-development and business strategy has been featured in Inc. magazine, Women's Health, Success, the Huffington Post, Mind, Body, Green, and many more of the magazines, mainstream business and lifestyle media. Her talks on human potential have been shared on stages, including TEDx, Mind Valley University, Oxford Business School, and Richard Branson's Private Island Necker. With a Master's of Science from the London School of Economics, Courtney brings and blends academic rigor with real-world experience to help individuals and organizations reach their highest potential. Her career highlights include executive roles at Vanity Fair Corporation, Vice President of Sustainability Partners, Inc., and successfully running her own business where she has worked with brands such as Universal Music Group, Nike, Kickstarter, and Google. Her book, Change Starts Within You, and what we're going to be talking today, her latest book, Give Yourself Permission, have helped thousands shift from a burnout and to inner leadership. I really loved our conversation because when you hear the conversation, it's more about who you are, but it also leads, because of her background and who she is and every single day of how she's dealing with the corporate world. It's the conversation of how to bridge who you are, the best of you, the real you, into a system, kind of where, life shows up. And you show up in life. And it was beautiful how she puts all of this together. So I hope that you enjoy this as much as I did. And the conversation just moves with a flow that I really, really loved. And I love to share this dialogue and the conversation that we had together with you. Now, be sure to subscribe to my podcast and my YouTube channel and connect with me through my website, foojanzeine.com, or any of the other social media platforms, and share your thoughts with me. I love to hear from you. Connect with us if you need therapy, coaching, functional medicine, mind and body, everything in the system that really gets you to be mentally healthy and thriving is with our virtual clinic. From anywhere in the world, you can connect to us and go to awarenessintegration.com and find all that you need to boost your mental health to the best. You can go to Foojan app to get that 24 hours and at your service. With Mira, which is the AI companion, which is trained in the awareness integration model. So take care of yourself in every format that you can. Now, without further ado, here's Courtney McDermott.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Foojan app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Foojan today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Intentional Parenting, a practical guide to awareness integration theory, written by Dr. Jafari, Dr. Foojan Zeine, and Dr. Manoukian, 3 experts in human development, is your step-by-step guide to raising a healthy child prepared for a culturally integrated world. You're supported in parenting infants to adolescents using the latest evidence-based scientific research on parenting. Order your copy on Amazon now.
It is so nice to have you with us. Everyone, Courtney McDermott with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I was intrigued with your book, the latest book that you have, Give Yourself Permission. Everybody, I want you to see the cover of the book here. Give yourself permission. Be confident, be happy, and be you. Now, one of the things that it got really intriguing for me was what you wrote in the introduction, which was years back. I started having experiences I could not explain. I've had many of those, but it was interesting because you said overnight, in one instant, I shed considerable weight and my body was visibly toned in ways that had never been before. That I want, Courtney. And then I was transported out of perceived space-time constraints and merged with a seemingly limitless intelligence. I want that too. At one point, I could literally feel the cells of my body and mind reorganizing into a new pattern of consciousness. Please do tell.
Yeah, it's funny. The intro to that book was written, and I say was written because it felt like it was written through me after I completed writing the book. And some of those experiences that I had, I was really hesitant to talk about because it might sound like woo-woo. It might sound like, I don't know, you're on something. And even though that's great, that wasn't the case with me. And these instances, these happenings were occurring, and they started occurring. I'd say it was probably about 6 years ago, the first one. And I was also noticing these things in my clients. So I was noticing cases of skin conditions vanishing within one session. I was noticing instances where people had come and they'd been working through a problem that they'd had for a really long time in the physical, and it was just gone. And so, and then of course I was also noticing a lot of things that were shifting psychologically very quickly for people, and myself included. And so I started to get really curious about the science behind that. And one of my signature keynote talks that I give around right now draws from 3 separate findings in 3 separate fields. So in neuroscience, epigenetics, and quantum theory. And all of these findings posit the same conclusion, which is that your directed consciousness is determining your experience. And so, of course, we kind of know this in a way, intuitively we kind of get it, or we've read it in so many books and all this stuff. But what I loved was that I was getting really clear explanations from these three fields. And I'm not a neuroscientist, I'm not a quantum physicist, but again, I was trying to understand and translate the best I could these experiences that were happening for myself and my clients. And so, so I drew from those three fields so that I could have some backup, right? Because I work with really smart people, and you can't just, tell them to stand in front of a mirror and say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me, right? So we have to also understand what are the mechanics behind that. And I think once you get the simplicity of some of these mechanics, like for instance, the finding in neuroscience was around the reticular activating system, which has become somewhat popularized of late, right? But it's so fascinating because it's like this incredible search engine that we all have and that most of us are misusing. And so once I started getting these keys, I started to, like I said, sort of translate them, make them as simple and accessible as possible for people to start having the same kinds of experiences.
That's beautiful. Yes, obviously, as I went through your book, beliefs are a conversation to have with yourself and with the rest of the world. And as a therapist, obviously, I work a lot with beliefs, and the theory that I also brought together has to do with how we look at the beliefs, and especially looking at the limiting beliefs and moving forward. But interesting, you obviously share between the conscious and unconscious belief, and there is a different tone in your book, which I want you to share, than the concept of like The Secret, or the concept of just believe it and it'll happen. There's more to that. It's not just a person, like you said, says that this is what I believe. I remember for a long time, this was many, many years ago, that I kept saying, I'm a particular weight. I'm a particular weight. I wasn't. So there is and then it was interesting because my body, I went to a physician, and then an Eastern medicine, also physician, so both Western and Eastern. And he was doing muscle testing with me. He looks at me, he says, it's funny because your weight is 160, but your body thinks it's 140. And I started laughing. And he said, why are you laughing at me? And I said, I'm not laughing at you. It's because I've been keep telling myself I'm 140. It hasn't been the truth, but somehow my body believed a discrepancy in here. So it's so interesting to see that, yes, you're going to change your belief, and you're going to be aware of your beliefs, and you're going to change your belief. But there's a difference in the energetic and the vibrational concept where that belief actually gets sustained, like it becomes you, and it manifests itself in that, versus just saying something to ourselves, or a basis of something that is so innately unconsciously there, and it's kind of like has become part of the fabric of our being and the coding. And if we're not recognizing that, then the duality happens where we're saying something and the system does something else. Can you share from your perspective on the concepts of belief?
Yes. And in that, let's go back to affirmations for a second, right? So a lot of people try to shift their beliefs by changing what they're telling themselves. And this is a zero-sum game. I have seen time and time again people failing. And I think that's also why a lot of these books that are out there fall a little short, because what happens is people kind of start on that track. They start telling themselves something. And yet there are these deeply held unconscious beliefs that are basically maintaining a holding pattern in your physical environment, right? And so the best way to go about this is please, 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 please do not repeat affirmations to yourself unless you have done a lot of mind training, which I applaud, and which the tiniest percentile of the human population will ever undergo because of how difficult it is. That said, you can retrain in different ways, in ways that are they sneak by the unconscious. So that's why, for instance, a moment ago, in the last time I was speaking, when I was talking about the reticular activating system, right? So this is a kind of a network in the brain. As far as I can tell, we're still totally trying to figure it out. But the cool thing about it is that it's seeking for answers to your predominant questions or your predominant thought patterns. It's filtering everything in your environment to find matches to those predominant beliefs, right? And so if you start, again, on the level of the conscious mind being like, I'm this or I'm that, right? It's like, it kind of, it's almost like it starts listening and they're like, oh, well, you're not, right? So there's a mismatch. But what it does welcome and what it does get excited about is a question. So this is one of the ways that I offer oftentimes to people is what are the questions you're asking yourself? Because if you start getting questions, right? Because here's the thing, the unconscious will not believe if someone says, I'm 140 pounds when they're really 160, the unconscious, it doesn't buy that. But if the question becomes, wow, how am I so easily losing this weight right now? Or how am I feeling more fit every day? Or whatever that question is. And you really do have to get with what the question is for you because no one else can give you that, right? There's going to be some sort of question that elicits an excitement in your body. That's the question to go with. And those questions, what happens then, this network in our brain, it starts looking for ways that can happen. So what's happening is you're not trying to convince yourself of anything and you're not trying to convince the unconscious of anything, but you're allowing these questions to form new beliefs. And once they form new beliefs, you inhabit a different consciousness. It's the different consciousness that expresses itself in a different way cellularly. So that's kind of what we have to get.
And how do you, based on your experience, formulate the question that it is for you, right? Because a lot of times what we tend to do is to formulate the questions that the society gives us, or there's a part of us that obviously sees something out there and the question shows up based on that. But how do you formulate the question which is within you that opens that, let's say, motivational construct, like, the search, the seeking that shows up for you?
Yeah, most people are not going to like the answer to this question. You really have to get with yourself. You really have to get with yourself. You have to make the primary dance in your life, the dance with yourself, the dance with the inner intelligence that's wanting to express through you in a very specific way. And again, most people are not going to want to do this because they're going to think, oh gosh, Court's talking about meditating. She's talking about, all these other things. No. I'm not even talking about any of that. You could literally go lay down for 5 minutes every hour, 2 hours, and you will start being able to listen more intently and more closely to what this inner intelligence is guiding you toward. And once you start doing that, it really does start to revolutionize your life because there is this intelligence that's coursing through us, right? We know this. All of us know it. We refer to it by different names. And I'll explain how we know it, right? Because most people, they say, well, I don't have faith in anything like that. I don't trust it. I don't know it, but here's the thing. For virtually every single thing that's occurring both within you and outside of you, you have a total trust in this intelligence that's running the show. Okay. So you have a trust that this intelligence is going to continue to conduct the trillions of biochemical reactions occurring in your body every second. You trust that this intelligence is going to continue spinning the planet so you can see this, you can see the mystery or however you want to call it of the sun and the moon. You trust all of that, right? And we have this inherent trust. And so as far as I can tell, the key is to really start getting with it, right? To say, okay, I trust you. What's next? What's next? What's next? And really awaiting the answer to that, kind of making it, that's your devotional practice. However you want to do that. I mean, some people might do that while they're mowing the lawn because they feel like they're in a kind of a trance-like state. Some people might do that while they're washing the dishes. Some people might do that just lying down, which I think is one of the most marvelous things we can do. But you got to get with it. Yeah, you got to get with it.
So what I hear from you is instead of telling yourself something, begin listening and prompting. A lot of people are using AI at this point. So this word prompting, it probably has some relevance to people, which is how do you ask and then how do you listen? And the questions that could be very simple, like what's next? And the listening of the voices that are coming from inside of you. Some of them might have a duality. Some of them might be talking to each other and having an argument with each other. But it's more of listening to the voice and the points that are being given to you. So it's the trust that you have internally versus not believing what the messages that are coming or the voice, the conversation that you're having with yourself, and then only looking at the external, which most people do. They keep looking at, because there's so much duality of voices that are inside of us, Sometimes people lose the trust about what's going on and they get frustrated. As a therapist, I keep hearing this, can you just shut down the voices that are in my head? I'm tired of listening to them. They're fighting. And, I can never get it. So there is a distinct difference between listening to yourself beyond this kind of a noise, where you can then trust what is being said and ask the question, allow the pondering to happen, allow every part of you that has a desire to share what they need to share, because they're all part of you anyway, right? And then you're saying, okay, what's next? And then listening, and it'll trusting that it will guide you to all that is there for you.
Yeah, yes. And here's the thing, a lot of people feel scared to do this because it means that you have to time out from all the noise, right? And that feels scary. We've been so entrained, especially, if you're in North America, you've been really conditioned and trained and entrained to have a lot of noise around and to pay attention to that noise, right? And so the minute you start reclaiming your attention, it's a little bit, it can feel kind of scary because that there's this FOMO thing, right? And but you start really getting into what I've heard called JOMO, right? The joy of missing out. You start really getting to, wow, there's all of this, there's worlds inside of me that wish to be expressed. And because it feels this way, I often tell people, just go lie down, right? And so people don't get why I say that a lot. And here's why I say it. Once you get horizontal, as you're getting horizontal, within a minute, sometimes less, within a couple minutes, you're starting to move into different brainwave frequencies. And those different brainwave frequencies are conducive with learning. They're conducive with creativity. You can drop into ones that start releasing catecholamines. All sorts of brilliant things are happening in your body as you get horizontal. Lots of times, it can take, especially if someone's been running on rush for a really long time, it can take a little bit longer. But I always tell people, look, if you think you don't have 5 minutes, and this is to kind of paraphrase from the Dalai Lama when he was talking about meditation, but if you don't think you have 5 minutes, take an hour, right? Because the thing is, to be able to access what it is that you really want in order to be at that next level, not that I necessarily like to talk in terms of levels, but to be more in the truth of who you are and the fulfillment of who you are, that requires relaxing. And it's something so countercultural at this point. But my promise to anyone listening is that the more you cultivate just relaxing, you don't have to get anywhere. You're not doing this even to change brainwave frequencies. You're literally just doing this so you can quiet the noise long enough to hear the truth.
Mm-hmm. Now, you talked about being in Northern America and has a different experience. You've lived in Italy, you've lived in France, and in U.S. What do you see different culturally based, where people kind of tap into their truth?
Well, I lived up in the north of Italy, which is very industrial. And so you do have a lot of forward movement, activity, all that kind of things. But there's also this sense of la dolce vita, which is like the sweet life, right? So there's also a sense that timing out is right and taking big breaks is right. And, in the middle of the day, there'll be a long break for lunch. And at the end of the day, it's like you're done, right? So you see more and more now, and in the north, you definitely see more of that kind of fighter spirit and the entrepreneurial spirit. And like I said, there are these buffers, and you also see a lot more protection for the people, right? The societies. So that I think is one of the things that I've noticed coming back to North America is, we think very independently, and in some ways that can be very great and useful. And we also need to think in terms of community and how people are taken care of and how the people around us are taken care of. And, I just got back from Italy a few weeks ago, and because I had been there over the year, but I was just noticing more and more this stark contrast of how you just don't see certain things especially in the smaller villages and towns, because there's more commitment to the fact that we're and I don't see, and I don't know that they would think of it this way, but it's one intelligence, right? So it's one being manifesting in untold form. So that's one of the biggest differences I see Yeah.
Based on what you just said, how do you see the personal truth that someone accesses to it different than the collective truth? Because you just, as you were sharing, sometimes when we're in a smaller community, people do experience that they have to take care of each other because in order for me to be able to survive, there are people who are going to support me and I got to support them. And there's a level of a building of a society that you commit to. And then obviously, there's a collective truth into all of it. And then you look at individualistic societies and, as you're saying, check into yourself and check in with your truth is. How do you see the two? Just kind of like an addition or part of, or just the big, you are part of the bigger one anyway. So as you access yours, you're also accessing to the bigger collective consciousness that are out there as a truth?
That's a very big question, my friend. I guess what I would say is that I see most of it as a kind of a divine play. And a lot of our greatest spiritual traditions have alluded to this in one way or another. It's like almost like I don't remember where that quote comes, but the million masks of God or something like that, right? And so I think once we start seeing that, like I said, this is one intelligence sort of masquerading in many forms, we can form an appreciation of all that's happening around us. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to buy into it, that we have to make it right or wrong or good and bad. Speaking of the stage and Shakespeare saying the whole world's a stage, he also said, there's nothing neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. And so we have this divine human opportunity to really recognize in everyone, again, just the million masks of God, the billions of masks of God, right? And again, however you want to refer to that intelligence, whether you want to call it universe, intelligence, Yahweh, Krishna, Buddha, like whatever, Allah, anything, whatever name we try to give to the nameless, right? That having that awareness of there is this power, it's coursing through me, it's orchestrating all of it. Can I surrender? Or maybe that, again, instead of surrender, can I relax into that? And can I start witnessing the beauty that's coursing through me and the beauty that's coursing through everyone else? As far as I can tell, and again, this isn't to answer in terms of culturally, societally, et cetera. This is just my answer, right? So the more I stick with that, the more I get to watch. It's kind of, in the world, but not of the world, that sensation of like, wow, this is really fascinating what's unfolding. I don't need to try to control it or manipulate it or anything or get my way or, be overly independent or even overly committed to a community. It's just like, wow, all of this gets to happen for me today, right now. Isn't that marvelous? Yeah.
Now, part of the major concept that you do is you've come from a corporate world and you are still you have major clients are in the corporate world. So you bring this essence of find your truth, lay down, hear yourself, be with yourself, ask yourself what is next. And there's a response. So there is a part of me, and then there's also the action oriented, world that you got to put this me into. And so as you move from the me into the, action world of the bigger world and manifestation of what that is, how do you bridge these two? Or is there a bridge, or is it just a being that moves, in action? So there's no bridge. It's just that the being now just moves into action.
Thank you. I am grateful for this question. So one of my I'll often tell people knock the ego all the time. And I always say, I love my ego. I mean, I seriously love my ego, right? The ego is the lowercase I, ego. It's the character you're playing. It's the persona. We use the word person. We say, I'm this kind of person. I'm that kind of person. That hails from ancient Greek theater. It was the persona was the mask they wore. So when you sit with that for a second, you get to say, oh, right. Okay. Again, the billion masks of God. And here's the thing. As far as I can tell, it's the order. It's the order. So I remember, and I'll explain, I was backstage years ago and it was, an audience of about 1,000 women. And I was back there and they were introducing me up front on the stage. And I remember telling myself, I wasn't going to listen to that. And I asked this intelligence that's coursing through me, that's coursing through you. I said, hey, can you, master intelligence, great mind, can you take over? I'm prepared. I'm definitely prepared for this talking. Can you just take over? Can you lead the way? So the order is, again, as far as I can tell, is when we lead with the persona, when we lead with the mask, when we confound ourselves into believing that we are that, that is when we fall flat. That is when, even if we did the thing, even if we achieved it, even if blah, 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 whatever, we don't feel that continuous pulsating momentum that is our right. When instead we give that persona, we give the character over to this intelligence, over to, again, to the universe, however, universo, right? One verse. When we give it over to the one verse and we say, hey, could you take over? Like, I did everything I could. Can you take over? There's something miraculous that happens. And I know, for instance, that after that, yeah, go ahead.
Expression. So then the ego just becomes the expression of whatever it is in that format. But there is a possibility of expression changing at any moment due to whatever it's there, versus if we are stuck in one of that persona, that we're limited and it could fall. Is that what I'm getting from you?
How I live it is, it's the way that the formless wants to express through this form.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I connect with that, I don't know what it's going to say. I don't really know what it's going to do. That's the kind of that edge of that cliff place, because this has happened to me. Yeah. This has happened to me numerous times where I was like, oh, I don't have any script. I don't have any prompts. I'm just like trusting that everything I've done up until this point has prepared me for whatever this is. And that doesn't mean that I'm not prepared in the sense that, that I've given it thought and I've given it space and all of that. And whatever it is that I'm preparing for, like, for instance, take that talk. I was hyper prepared for that talk. And I had to step aside the ego part of me, or the character that leads, that, again, I love this character. It puts me in, Fortune 500 rooms where I have absolutely zero trepidation and I'm just good to be there, or puts me on stages in front of thousands of people. It's that character, right? And yet there's a way that the formalist wants to work through this form that always comes a bit as a surprise to me. And I feel the difference. And you know what? I think people feel the difference because we can always feel, right? We always feel when something feels scripted. We always feel when something feels false. We always feel when something's a little bit off. We can't exactly explain what's going on, but we're like, that's a little bit off. And I think the reason is that's when the ego is leading the charge. That's when the persona or the character is leading the charge. And again, we were trained to do that. Like, everyone wants to be quote unquote someone special. But here's the thing, you are someone special. It's almost like we got tricked into believing that we had to search and seek and struggle for something that was already ours, that was ours all along. And when this intelligence is coursing through you, you know that. So take that talk, for instance, that I gave all those years ago, afterward, the entire next day, I felt as if I was a live wire. I felt like pure electric energy was streaming through me. And I cried and cried and cried because I just couldn't believe that the human form could be filled and contain all of that light without bursting. That's how I felt the entire next day. And so I knew I was really onto something. But again, all of the ways that the formalist wants to work through your form, that does take a certain degree of discipline, but what's on the other side will just blow you away.
It's like, get out of your own way, pretty much.
Put yourself in the way of this divine intelligence. Yeah. Sync up to it. Mm-hmm. Sync up to it. You are not the problem. The whoever's leading the charge, it's a question of who's leading the charge. Sync up to that intelligence. See how much you can consider how your vibration can align to that, how your frequency can align to that. Tesla, the great inventor, was always on about, if you want to understand the nature of reality, study frequencies and vibrations. Literally everything. The chair you're sitting on is vibrating. It's moving. It's moving about at the speed of express trains. The only reason you perceive it as solid is because of the frequency at which you're vibrating. Same thing when you're attuning to this intelligence, it's vibrating at a different frequency. How do you attune to it? How do you stay attuned to it? That could become your major question. And if it is, it'll change your life.
So the question, you still have to go into some visualization of the future, but the point would be, are you creating a visualization of the future for yourself and then asking, how do I vibrate through, align my vibration into the future that I'm intending to be? Or are you even not visualizing your future and you're just asking what's next and allowing it to unfold?
Well, so as far as I can tell, there's no such thing as the future. And we hear this, right? We hear this from people, but we kind of don't get it because we always think that something is away from us, something exists outside of us. And, when Einstein's, he came across quantum entanglement, and I can't recall at the time whose theorem exactly he was looking at, but he called it spooky stuff at a distance because it almost seemed to disprove his theory on relativity, which, he was saying that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. And the speed of light is something like 186,000, 300 miles per hour or something like that. I can't recall exactly, but he was like, that's the fastest information can travel. But what a lot of quantum theory and the findings there have revealed is that we can contact each other. We can move information instantaneously. You can shift instantaneously into a new reality. And so what makes that really powerful is it's like realizing that all of these potentials for you exist right now. They exist in the field right now, and it's like you could pull from any which one of them. And when you talk about visualization, that's already knowing that it's yours.
Yes.
The strongest and most beautiful form of this is when we say, oh my gosh, I already have it. Mm-hmm. And what's curious is that a lot of the things we think we want, under them lies freedom.
Right.
It's about liberating yourself from yourself. And you can do that at any moment, right? And so you can realize, oh my gosh, I had freedom all along. I remember listening to a commencement speech that Jim Carrey gave years ago, and he said something like, how tricky is this ego that it would tempt us with the promise of something we already possess. Mm-hmm. And another way of thinking of it is like, whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you want, it's like, well, there's a couple different ways of thinking of it that might help. One is I'm in this building, right? I'm on the first floor. This is where I'm at. What I want is on the 7th floor, right? So part of me has to ascend. In other words, I have to align my vibration to that potential in order to start seeing that potential. And I have to rise to that potential in order to get there.
Yes.
Another way of thinking about it is, I love thinking about it in terms of a map, right? So if I say I want to get to Chicago, but I don't know if I'm in New York or LA, I have a problem, right? I have to know where I am right now. And there is a truth to where you are, okay? Where you are exists and where you are is real, right? And by the way, you don't get all up in your grill about where you are. You don't say, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm in LA. That's totally, whatever that is. You're just like, oh, I'm in LA. I got to go to Chicago, right? So you are somewhere. At the same time, Chicago's also there. That's my hometown. So, Chicago is also there. It's like, it's there, it exists, and it takes you deciding how or if you're going to go there, right? And I see a lot of people with so-called manifestation, right? It's like, we're not really creating. Once again, all of these potentials exist in the field. So it's really a question of, can I start directing my consciousness toward that and initially take some Newtonian steps in that direction until next thing I know, boom, I'm there and I don't even know how it happened. I could go on and on about this because it's one of my favorite conversations, but I'll leave it to you on that note.
I'm all good. You can continue as much as you want with offering, because the language, it's very clear for me as I, studied a lot of this. So it's clear and I follow you. I think that there's a part that I want to explain, and for you to explain more from your perspective is, because the world especially the world of corporate or the world of action oriented, is very goal oriented. So this concept of I'm here and there's somewhere to arrive at, it's somewhere to go, it's somewhere, there's the next destination. And I'm opening this conversation so you'll bring this to land this for, there's a thought process of I got to go from LA to Chicago. And yet all is as is in the moment. So can you bridge these two concepts of goal oriented, going somewhere, to all is here?
Yeah. So, okay. So let's take a very concrete example. That's not necessarily about a goal, although it could also be perceived as a goal, but it's a great metaphor for people to start understanding, where they're going, how they're getting there, et cetera. I think it was shortly before the new year, I decided I was going to go to Joshua Tree. Right. And I was sort of on the fence. I was going with a group of friends and I was on the fence because it was, the idea was to camp there and it's very cold and I do not like being cold. And I was sort of, am I going to do this? I'm not going to do that. That can be like the beginning of when you're deciding something, being on the fence, am I going to do it? I'm not going to do it. Right. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. Right. So I get in my car. Well, yeah. It wasn't right away, but I got in my car the day of going there and I plug this into my GPS. I plug Joshua Tree into my GPS. Now, Joshua Tree, it tells me that I'm about, I think it was about 3.5, I was supposed to be about 3.5 hours away from Joshua Tree, right? Again, Joshua Tree's there, right? Like, I'm not wondering if it's there. I'm not wondering if it's going to disappear on my way there. I'm not wondering if I can get there because I got a full tank of gas and, my car is all set. I'm not wondering about any of that. All those things might happen. I might somehow get into a loop and run out of gas. I might have some engine trouble, whatever that is. All of that could happen on your way, but you still know that thing exists. You're not doubting that it exists because of your ability to get there or not get there. Your ability to get there or not get there has to do with what's going on, what kinds of preparation you have, whether you're ready for it, whatever that looks like, right? That's what's determining that and things that are seemingly outside of your control, which is again where this intelligence comes in. In this particular instance, I left at 9:00 in the morning and I got there at 3:30. Okay. So the GPS was definitely off. Now the GPS can be likened to that inner guidance system that we all have, right? So you can imagine a potential that exists in the field and it exists most of the time because other people have done it, right? There are people who dream outside of what other people have done, but it's not super common. Right. So you're like, okay, this is a possibility. Right. And it maybe is a potential for me, given the assets that I have. In other words, like I have certain things that allow me to do that. I have the car or I have the private jet or I have whatever it is that can take me there. Right. And meanwhile, like I said, you're knowing that this is there. You're knowing that you can get there. But like I said, in my case, it was 9 to 3:30. Now I got a little sidetracked because I wanted to visit a place on the way. So that was me deciding that I was going to get off track a little. But the other thing that happened was I got to Joshua Tree, the entrance, and there was this really long line of cars. So it was like an hour and a half waiting to get into Joshua Tree. Now, I saw some people turn around, right? They didn't want to wait there. They didn't want to wait to get in the park. They turned around. They decided they were going to do something else, right? But I, of course, I was happy to be there and I was intent on getting there. So I had to, I spent this time waiting, but I spent that time in total gratitude. I was looking around. I saw this amazing panorama. I was able to listen to a podcast. I was kind of able to talk to a friend, although that was hit or miss because the signal wasn't so great, all that kind of stuff. And here's what I have to say is in terms of a metaphor is like, if you keep trusting, you're going to arrive. Like, the universe or this intelligence might guide you to other places, and it might even in the end decide that that's not for you. But what it's deciding is for you. There's joy in it. There's peace in it. There's a lot of light in it. So if you can kind of show up for what's in front of you and do the best you can while holding a vision, and again, allowing the character that you're playing to kind of be subservient to this intelligence, because for whatever reason, this intelligence knows where we're supposed to be and it gets us there when we need to get there. So that's kind of a little bit of a metaphor. But when I look at it in terms of, goals, right, that people have, there's that line, without a vision, the people perish, right? And it is important to have something that gets you excited. And it's important to not give all of your power to that at the same time, and to recognize that the excitement that lives in that ideal, in that quote unquote goal, is actually a deeper alignment to a truth that exists in you. So, for example, if people talk about being financially independent or things like that, no one stays up at night saying, oh, I wish I was financially independent, right? What they're wishing for is like that they feel safety.
Yeah.
That's what they're wishing for. Okay, that they feel safety, that they feel freedom. That's what they're wishing for. You can tap into those feelings right now, and as you do, you start to align to the frequency, and that vision of that particular thing may change form. The way you come about it may change. I know extremely wealthy people who do not have a lot of money in the bank account, and I know people who have a heck of a lot of money in the bank account, and they are not wealthy by any means. So, choose your visions wisely and allow this inner intelligence to really be the one that's almost like the chauffeur in the car, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone, get this book. Give yourself permission. Be confident, be happy, be you, by Courtney McDermott. Courtney, anything that you haven't said or shared that you really want people to know?
I just thank you. I'm very excited to be sharing this space with you. I've checked out your work. You've been doing for a number of years, really important work. And thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. I'm really grateful.
Thank you. And where can people find you?
It's funny. I often tell people, if this resonated with you, just keep listening to this. There's nowhere else for you to go. You don't have to go and, seek it out somewhere else. The reason things resonate with us on a deep level is because we're calling information to us. And I do think that the books that I've had the privilege of putting out there, they do the same thing. It's like you're calling specific information. So if you're looking for that, they're available pretty much anywhere where books are sold. That one thing to pay attention to is that Courtney, my name, is spelled C-O-R. Sometimes I go by Coco, C-O-C-O, so people can remember the Courtney without a U. So there's that. So if you're looking for me anywhere online, and I'm sure there'll be stuff in the show notes. I love hearing about people's stories. At this point, we've had hundreds of people write in about whether it was the book, whether it was a talk, where they've had a lot of these spontaneous transformations that we were talking about at the beginning. So I try to read all of those, and I'm really appreciative when people connect.
Beautiful. Any particular website they should go to?
Yeah, so there's CourtneyMcDermott.com or Court Inc., C-O-R-T Incorporated. So CourtInc.com is the short URL for that, and people can find lots of other resources and information about the work.
Yeah. And your social media is all Courtney McDermott too?
It's Courtney McDermott, yeah, C-O-R-T-N-E-Y McDermott, M-C-D-E-R-M-O-T-T. It's a very long name. But you'll find me there.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for sharing your world, your experiences with everyone in such a beautiful way.
Thank you.
And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Are you a psychotherapist looking to enhance your practice? The Awareness Integration Therapy developed by Dr. Foojan Zeine is a comprehensive guide to the principle and techniques of this powerful therapeutic approach. Join the growing community who have elevated their practice and expanded their skills by embracing Awareness Integration Therapy and witnessing its life-changing impact. Order your copy on Amazon now.